we don't get to everything, so send them an email later. Now, before we get started, but yet again, I'd like to remind you all, make sure you do grab a cookie from the back from Feed Bakery. They are a local program that serves unemployed residents of Dane County, particularly Northsiders, by providing valuable baking training and job placement services. And the cookies are delicious. Back to today's presentation, I do want to introduce Zach Osmond from Johnson Financial Group, who's going to give us a few updates about Clean Lakes Alliance, as well as tell us a little bit more about today's speaker.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks to everyone who is joining us here at the Eastside Club. I'd like to thank our Clean Lakes 101 sponsors, presenting sponsor, National Guardian Life Insurance Company, hosting sponsor, the Eastside Club, supporting sponsor, Johnson Financial Group, Alliant Energy, and Perkins Coie, production partners, the UW Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies and UW Extension, and as Dana said, we're happy to have WKOU as the media sponsor. A few quick updates. First, if you haven't already, consider renewing your donation today. As always, your support plays a direct role in protecting our lakes. With your donation, we can continue to expand our water quality, monitoring, education, and volunteerism, programs, and advocate for initiatives that preserve the health of our lakes. And speaking of volunteerism, sign up today for Clean Lakes Alliance upcoming Community Volunteers Day. We'll be at Ulrich Park next Wednesday, September 17th from 8:45 to 11. We'll be removing invasive species throughout the grounds alongside our partners, Madison Parks. Come get your hands dirty with our lakes and make our lakes cleaner. We also have upcoming volunteer opportunities on Wednesday, October 15th at Holy Wisdom Monastery and Thursday, October 30th at Marshall Woods Park. For our October events, we'll be gathering native seeds to restore and create new native plantings throughout the watershed. More details and registration info can be found on Clean Lakes Alliance calendar on their website. Back to today's talk. Here to share more about the connection between anaerobic digesters and water quality is Jessica Niekrasz. Jessica is the principal of Niekrasz Consulting and brings over 20 years of cross-sector leadership experience in clean energy, strategy, and stakeholder engagement. She has led operations and policy efforts at several organizations, including the American Biogas Council, supporting state-level energy advocacy across the country. She's a fellow Clean Lakes Alliance community board member and supporter of healthy, clean waters. Here to share more about the role that digesters can play in improving water quality in our lakes, please join me in welcoming Jessica Niekrasz.
Oh, you guys are in for it. I've got an open mic and a captive audience talking about manure. We will mosey on. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the digester arena since about 2015. At that time, my former business partner and I purchased the Dane County Community Digester along with another facility in Jefferson County. We had grand ideas of what was going to happen with these facilities. We were like, oh, we're going to follow the Southwest airline. We're going to have the same tanks and the same everything. We're going to pop these up all over. No, we found out they're unicorns. It's been an interesting journey around the manure pit, so to speak. Started with ownership, moved into operation of maintenance on behalf of other owners. Also found out that policy and advocacy is actually really key for these facilities. Understanding action, working with entities like here in Dane, with the county, as well as the townships that they are located in. From there, I found myself moving into the east side of the world, which is basically engineering, procurement, and construction. Moved up here. I've been lifelong Chicagoan, now I'm Madisonian, to work at that organization, really seeing another angle of how the business works. Very, very interesting. And now I'm taking all this interesting experience and sharing it with organizations as a consultant. I'm a repeat offender as a board member here at Clean Lakes Alliance. This is my second go around, and I'm grateful that they had me back. So let me tell you a little bit about the Dane County Community Digester. It was originally started operation right around 2012, if I remember correctly. We owned and operated it from 2015 to 2019. At the time, electricity generation was the use of the methane that's captured in this in these tanks. We learned firsthand that digesters are complex, expensive, and impactful. They don't run themselves, and this is without a doubt more of a materials handling business than anything else. Our contract with the county required that we remove 60% of the phosphorus that came through our facility. So essentially what to say is that manure came in, we took a sample of it, we figured out how much phosphorus was in there. We knew that our goal, as the solids left the building, so to speak, that was going to have less phosphorus in it than what it came in with. Our lesson learned is, again, digesters don't run themselves. It is, I believe the original contract said that 2.5 people could run this facility. We had 6. So what is a digester? This is my favorite graphic ever. So essentially it is a spilled cow stomach. An input and how it's food. For us, it's waste. At the time, it could either be a substrate, it could be waste, it could have been glycerin bombs from biodiesel production and a bunch of stuff. The goal is to make nothing, but the business model today is manure only. As it goes through the tank, you know, a cow's stomach is heated, it's moving and grinding, and in the digester, those tanks are heated to just a hair over 100 degrees. There is essentially, for the best way to describe it, a boat engine bolted to the bottom of the tank. It continues to mix that waste. I'm really searching for a good word here. The manure is mixed on average for, it's a continuous flow process, and on average, the material stays in the tank about 25 days from beginning to end. That's on average. And then as we know, cow farts are a real thing. So that's the methane we are capturing off the top of those domed buildings that are the digesters. On the back end, we get both, we get a combined liquid and solid product. It goes through some pressing, the liquid drops out, that's returned to the farms, and the solids are shipped out of the watershed. So what digesters do and don't do. Digesters definitely capture methane. That's awesome. It's a greenhouse gas. We don't want that released into the environment. Can't help with the cow farts yet, but I know there's technology in the ag working on that. They do reduce odors and pathogens. This is one of the best parts about this. I'm a city kid, and I got into this business. And so the first time I went to a manure pit, that was probably one of our farms. I just stood back. No, not getting too close. They're like, no, notice there's no flies. And I was like, no. So I got a little closer, and that's like, they're like, do you smell anything? I don't smell anything. This is a miracle. So they do definitely, they make the farms good neighbors. And then they do help us take the phosphorus and concentrates it in form that we are able to move it more easily. Elemental science says phosphorus does not disappear. So we have to take it and move it from somewhere where it's too much to some place where it can use. I'm going to share this with you. Back in 2020, webinars were a big thing. And so I went out to a couple farms and put this digester tour together. So, forgive the quality, but it was the best my, untalented self. So here I am driving through a cow barn. Anybody not been to a dairy? All right, okay. The cows are here, we scrape the manure off the floors of these barns. And now that drops into a pit below the slats. And out into the sunlight again. So that's how we get the manure. It's then piped over, and this was the largest farm at the Dane County facility. The run between the facility, between the farm and the facility was about a quarter of a mile length. So nothing to sneeze at. All the manure at that facility is piped in underground. You can see that there's a berm that's been created here, so there's raised land all around it in case something happens. So that manure would be contained. This, I'm standing on the scale, which is how we weigh the nutrients in and out. So another view, we are really nestled within farm operations. We are right in the middle of 3 different farms. You can see the 3 tanks. These tanks right here, the one closest is the incoming manure. The one with the lid is the outgoing manure. All the farm's manure comes into here and it's underground to a mixing building. Best way I can explain this is it's a big pit with a giant mixer in it. And what it's doing is it's blending the 3 farms manure together to create a homogeneous, whatever the right word is for that. Anyway, because I'm 12, I had to show you. And so from here, it's pumped into those giant tanks, and it's like I said, continuous flow, average 25 days. The gas is up in that domed air dome. So from here, the gas is sectioned off, and it goes through this skid, this renewable gas skid. So essentially, what we're doing here is we're taking methane and we're dropping out all the contaminants and preparing it to be pipeline quality renewable natural gas. It's compressed, put into trucks, and it is hauled to the landfill where there's a decanting station. Thank you, Dane County. From there, we still have to deal with what is left. And so we separate the liquids from the solids using something called a fan separator or a screw press. The liquid drops down, that is sent back to the farms and applied to the land according to their nutrient management plan. The solids, well, these are shipped out of the watershed or used by the farms for animal bedding. To give you some scale on how much manure is processed, I would say that's about 2 days worth of solids. All right, so why do we do this? We do it because phosphorus, when it hits farm temps and sunlight, 1 pound of phosphorus can equal 500 pounds of algae. Algae is, blooms are just kind of gross, they smell bad, they can be toxic. Additionally, it can create fish kills and yeah, there's some fish kills. So these facilities, digesters, help reduce the runoff with the goal of reducing the amount of algal blooms in our lakes. And like I said, the digesters need to remove 60% of the phosphorus that enters those facilities. All right, so I did some learning on this as well. So the scale of the challenge. Now, I knew what my facility did, but I didn't really understand how it fit in with everything in Dane County. We've got 155,000 cows in our county. We've got 60,000 in the Mendota watershed. The 2 digesters that are part of the community digester program support 9,200 animals. So let me give you, some people equivalency, 9,200 cows equals 423,000 people. I think that's roughly 71% of Dane County's population as of 2024. I'm just trying to give some scale on this. I found it really interesting. We also need about 2 to 3 acres per cow. So we need somewhere between 120 to 180,000 acres for spreading. I think that we move a lot of this out of our county because we have 63 acres available in the watershed. We share this with MMSD. All right, this is the microphone. This is besides the cow. Give me some manure volumes and scale. Poorly, but no, no shade. So for 9,200 cows, that we would be spreading 7 inches of waste on Lambeau Field every day. We've all seen a football field in person. It's pretty remarkable sized plot. So for 60,000 cows, which is the Mendota watershed, that would be approximately 4 feet a day. And for the 155,000 cows, 10 feet on a football field every single day. Obviously, we're not going to spread it on sacred land, but it helps show some scale. All right, reaching the 60% removal rate. So when we took over the facility, the setup for separating liquids from solids was a little different. We had this really huge piece of machinery called a centrifuge. And a way to describe this is if you've ever gone to Great America or some kind of amusement park and there was a ride where it's a circle that was in the ground and it would spin around really fast, you'd end up sticking to the wall through centrifugal force, and the floor would drop out and come back up. That's what a centrifuge does. The makers of the centrifuge were like, we can get phosphorus out like crazy. And so we're like, okay, you know, and then so we're doing our measuring and our lab tests, and we have 37%. Oh, what are we doing wrong? You know, this is supposed to remove 60%. It's not a small or inexpensive machine. So we had the company come out, and best they got was that actually we were more like in the low 40s. They got it up to 47%. So, you know, we've got a contract requirement to the county. And so the next 13% became very expensive as we add polymers. And polymer is like a coagulant, I guess is a good way to say this. Phosphorus shows up in waste streams in 2 ways. It comes in particulate phosphorus and inparticulate phosphorus. And so imagine you had a cookie, and so you can move that cookie around. You can give it to somebody else and whatever. If you crumble that cookie, it's a lot harder to share. It's a lot harder to collect. You're going to lose pieces. So that's what essentially we're trying to collect those cookie crumbs with polymers. So it worked. It got us up to the number we were supposed to be at. And so we were under compliance, which is a very big deal. Most of the fiber, probably repeated this a few times, goes outside the watershed. Our farms do haul some of it back to their to the pens for the cow or for the dairy cows, and they use it as a bedding instead of sand. But that's not what we really don't like sand. Pipes and pumps do not like sand. And that's really what this business is. Trade-offs. We have the higher cost with the polymer, the addition of the polymers, and they also change the consistency of the fiber a little bit. As a coagulant, it would sort of produce these little tiny balls instead of it just being, I can tell you the fiber is like peat moss. It smells like it, it moves like it. So it changed the consistency a little bit, but nothing terrible. So where it all goes. We've got biogas, we've got the gas that comes up off, to the domes, it is siphoned off. It's then put through that skid that I shared on the video, which is just a series of filters. One tank filters one contaminant, another tank filters another contaminant. But it gets it to 99.7%. And renewable natural gas. It's the same natural gas we're mining out of the ground elsewhere. But it's coming from waste that is always going to be consistent within our region, right? You know, like we do dairy here. It's, 20-some% of the state's economy, it's important to figure out how to handle all this. Once it is cleaned up, it is compressed and put into tanker truck or like just these kind of box truck looking things. It's then moved over to the landfill where they have a decanting station. It kind of looks like a futurized gas station, and the driver comes out and hooks up this thing to the back of the tank. The quality of the gas is checked there prior to having access to the pipeline. And if it gets the green light, it takes about an hour and a half to decant one of those trucks. It is not of pipeline quality, it is flared on site. The one bit of information I do not have, and I wish I did, and perhaps somebody in the room does, is how often it's actually flared on site. The solids, the watershed, used as animal bedding, liquids are returned to the fields under their nutrient management plan. The cool thing about that liquid is it is carbon based. It is incredibly good for the soil. And it reduces the amount of chemical fertilizer that needs to be applied. So it's really good for rehabilitation of soil. This is not the Monarchy digester. This one's the Middleton digester, which we operated on behalf of a different owner once we got solar facilities. So these were built to improve water quality. They were retrofitted, originally electricity, as I mentioned, they were retrofitted in 2019 and 2020-ish, I believe, for renewable natural gas. This was the pivot the industry took. I can give you a little history on electricity versus renewable natural gas. The electricity was the original business model here, and the utilities subsidized this as part of the renewable portfolio standard. They had to have some percentage of their energy coming from renewable energy. This was one of the things they did. By the time these power purchase agreements, these agreements between facilities and the utilities were coming close to expiring, there were other options. Solar had taken hold, wind had grown up, hydro from Canada was allowed by the legislature. So it didn't make sense for the utilities to continue to pay for these kilowatt hours. I don't blame them. So there was this big pivot in the industry, really across the entire country, to move to renewable natural gas. And it was like the Wild West. I mean, there were dairy people going out and selling these projects and talking to farmers, and these were popping up all over the place. So anyway, to bring it back to our digesters, we currently produce enough RNG to either fuel 7,000 cars or heat 52 or support 52,000 or 5,200 homes based on average electric use, which is pretty darn cool. And again, the fee is hydrophosphorus renewable. So back to the changing economics. I jumped out there, so to speak. These projects are paid for mostly by the low carbon fuel standard based out of California. California decided at some point, if you've got a truck and you're putting diesel into it, you're going to pay for these credits. And so they created this credit market. This is what led to the Wild West. I mean, it was crazy. Projects developed like crazy. So when the the Dane County digesters came online with their renewable natural gas options. These credits were worth upwards of $200 a piece. Because we had, a lot of projects come online, that price has dropped significantly, as has the financials for these projects. They're somewhat challenged. Went from $200 down to about $50 right now. So that's a pretty big drop for the amount of money that you think was going to be coming in. Additionally, because of COVID, costs have gone up, supply chains have become unreliable. We are not unique to those challenges, but they definitely apply here as well. The result is there's less money available for innovative activities around nutrient collection, right? Because the businesses, these are businesses, they are privately owned businesses. The county is gracious enough to lease us the land on which we sit. So, I'm not a doomsayer on this. I'm just telling you that it's not the easiest thing that these facilities are dealing with at the moment. So, like I said earlier, humans make waste, and that's got to go somewhere too. So we share those spreadable acres with MMSD, keeping in mind the nutrients. Farms are measuring their soil, they're staying on top of the agronomy, making sure that they're not overloading it. For MMSD, they have about 407,000 people, which equals 13.1 billion gallons of waste a year. It is digested, it is fully treated. So our Mendota cows, watershed cows, we create about 600 million gallons per year, which is the waste of 2.3 million people. Manure is 5.7 times more concentrated than sewage. And to contrast, MMSD is definitely always fully treated. Most manure is land applied in the county because we saw those statistics, right? We have 9,200 cows that are supported. So the map that's on here is the spreadable area for MMSD, I believe in the beige colors. Just to give you an idea. So I've had a couple of conversations with James, and I wanted to work this in just a little bit, so that we can keep this in mind and the importance digesters could play. Dane County's population is supposed to double by 2050, right? So we can take the number of gallons of annual human waste and double that. And then if we continue to have the same number of cows on this land, then what are we looking at? We've got some spreadable challenges that we're going to have to deal with. We built infrastructure for people, but not for the cows. So, it's something that I think will require additional attention as the years continue on in our but what that means, we get more people, we've got more places that we're going to have to house them, right? So that's spreadable acres that are going to come out of rotation, right? So that we can house these folks. I think digesters could be very impactful in managing growth and protecting our lakes by allowing us to capture the nutrients that will overwhelm our spreadable acres. And, take it from where it's not welcome to where it could be used. They're expensive to build, they're expensive to own and operate, but they're effective at separating nutrients. So I'm not a policy creator. And I'm glad I'm not in this instance, because that's going to be kind of a challenging, it's going to be a challenging question. So earlier this year, Clean Lakes Alliance put out an economic report, the benefit of the lakes to Madison. And it's truly incredible. Statistics include the creation of 1,800 jobs, an additional $220 million incoming. And for every closure, it's $3.2 million lost per bloom per day. Is that accurate? Wow. Think of that money. Isn't that incredible? It also discovered that property values are directly tied to water quality. So really we have friends that we can link arms with, where there are property concerns, realtors, right? You know, other organizations where these conversations can be had. The key message really here is healthy lakes equal thriving community and a better economy. So, you know, that's pretty incredible. And really thank you to James and the entire team here for having foresight to create this project and learn more. There's more on the website. All right, so just to sum it all up, there's are a part of the solution. They can be an essential part of the solution. It is not a silver bullet. They are not going to solve. This is just one tool in the toolbox. We can look at things like cover crops and raking our leaves out of the gutters and stormwater practices and rain gardens. So all of those little bits add up over time. It might not seem like much, but it really does make an impact. The benefits of digesters include, you know, we're creating renewable energy from a consistent stream of waste that is going to exist whether we use it or not. The odor reduction, digesters really do help the farmers be better neighbors. Listen, it's getting to be spreading season soon. You will know who's using raw manure near you, right? And then finally, the ability to move nutrients easily through capture. That's really all I've got for you guys.
All right, I just put it on. Test, maybe. We are gonna have time for Q&A. We're trying to see if the mic is working. I'm trying to test it. I've got a blue light blinking over here, Caitlin. Test. Mic check. Hey, there we go. Okay, Jessica, thank you. All right, so we do have a mic, so like the old days, I'm gonna come around and give you the mic, that way we can all hear our question. We won't have to repeat it since we can all yell it out. So do we have any questions for Jessica? Yes, go ahead.
The stuff that goes for bedding, you know, what happens that when the phosphorus is still in there? So what happens when it's used as bedding? And if that does get back in the system?
So the barns are scraped, and so that bedding is going with it as well. It turns it.
The question is.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, certainly. If the farms are using the bedding, what happens to the phosphorus in that bedding? Most barns are scraped, some are sprayed down for washing, but it's going back into a continuous process, so it stays within a loop.
All right, when you talk into the mic, you want to hold it close.
Out here.
Right out in the.
What I've heard for decades is people say, why should our watershed accept excess nutrients from your watershed? It seems that a major component of the phosphorus removal is exporting the phosphorus and solids to another watershed. What do you say to people in the other watersheds that say, we don't want your excess phosphorus?
So again, it's going to, based on my experience, it has been other farms that are accepting that those nutrients, like, so they'll use the fiber as bedding. For the most part, so they're bedding their cows on it, and then it's, you know, I don't know how to fully answer that question, you know. I don't know how to fully answer that question, maybe somebody else has a better option on that. However, it is included in that farm's nutrient management plan, because even if they're spreading it after the cows have bedded on it, it would be included in their nutrient management plan.
Perhaps the answer to this question might help us understand a little more about that. And you don't have to pull it up, but in the slide where you say that you remove the first 47% by centrifuging and squishing it, that 47% sounds like it is in the liquid. Then you squish the liquid out.
Now, for whatever reason, Mother Nature likes to bind to the solids.
Okay, so at that point, where is that 47%? In the solid or in, you know, I'm just trying to understand, where did that other 53% go with that place at that time? Or where did that 47% go? I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, there's a certain percentage that goes into the liquid, but that is the minority of it. Like, I don't remember the math on it specifically, but it is all very calculated and recorded on a monthly basis. These reports are sent to the county for review, so there's no ability to fudge those.
Well, I guess I was asking more of a physical question.
Yeah.
Is the stuff do you take the liquid and put it in tank trucks and they go to farms and spray it? Or is it just the solids that are going to be spread on the land?
No, the liquid goes back to the manure pits at the farm, so it's pumped back to the farm. They know exactly what percentage of NPK is in that, and then they can blend that with any other fertilizer necessary to support the crop plan.
And where does the water go off then from this facility?
There's no water, it's all liquid. So when we squeeze, all that liquid is dropped off and that is pumped back to the farms. That's what goes in their manure pit.
Okay.
Just a really quick question. When you said polymers are added
Mhm.
onto the manure, are those natural based polymers or synthetic?
I am not a chemist, I don't know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I can find out though.
We talked about the energy that was produced and provided energy for homes and such.
Yes.
I gave a number. Can you give that number in BTUs? How much energy that be was?
No. I mean, somebody can calculate it, but it's smarter than I am.
Well, I mean, I don't know why. If you had any BTUs, I'd be interested to see how many BTUs are produced per cow. Instead of the 9,200 cows.
Yep.
Want to make sure I capture that.
Got all your questions here.
Jessica, can you repeat that question, please?
Sure, the question was, how many BTUs are actually generated from the facilities in total, instead of calling it 7,000 cars or 5,200 homes. And I don't know. That's math, you do that. But I can find out, I will find that number out.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you very much. That was really informative. I always wondered about how these things work. So as an operator, you obviously know intimately. But at the end of the day, as you said, these are businesses, so there has to be, the economics have to work out. I was surprised to learn that really the market has been made by California policy, where they're charging diesel users to create a market for these things, and that market's had its ups and downs, as you said. Hard to know where that goes, but my question is, is there a better way to invest in creating markets or directly invest into this technology? Because we need this technology as part of the solution. And it seems like we don't have a lot of support for a business model. Like you, I'm sure as an operator, the margins were really thin to negative. So there needs to be a better business model that's supported not only by California, but how about the rest of the country, so that we can really make the investments to make this part of the solution.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I've said for the last several years that, a lot of these business plans have been built on hope. You know, we hope that our power purchase agreement will be renewed. We hope that California's credits will remain at a steady price. The truth of the matter is that California is actually changing their low carbon fuel standard, where you're really going to have to prove that the molecule of gas that you're injecting into a pipeline is showing up in a truck in California. So we're gonna watch that market shrink over the next 10 years. It is my hope of hopes. Other markets do exist, Oregon, Washington, and New Mexico just passed one last session. Minnesota's been toying with it, Illinois has been toying with it. I would love to see a Midwest version of this exist. But that's a policy will move slower than molasses in the bolt, so, you know, that's, it'll take time. In the meantime, we still have businesses to run, and, you know, the way I see this improving is through efficiency of asset operations. And there are some technologies, some new things that are coming forward. I've been lucky enough to get tapped to help launch one for next year. I can't talk about it too much yet. So really business economics, improving how your facilities are run is going to be one of the key areas to making those models work.
Thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot. I trying to work out in my own head why, as a resident of Madison and Dane County, I pay for wastewater treatment for me and my family based on the amount of wastewater that I send out of my home. Why would we not charge milk producers for wastewater treatment for their facilities? Or why, maybe that is how the business model works in other parts of the country or in other parts of Wisconsin?
Not that I'm aware of, first and foremost, but, you know, dairy is a huge part of the state economy, right? And it, as a result of the revenue that comes in from this, it pays our roads, it educates our kids, it, you know, creates social safety nets. So, if that's just what will come at me. Not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. Additionally, also in the column of not a good thing or a bad thing is farms got bigger over time, and that started about 35 years ago. And I don't see that being undone, because it provides us $3 gallons of milk and the ability to get a $12.99 pizza at Domino's. So there's a whole economic piece of this, you know, that is already woven well into everything we touch and everything we do. And it's an excellent question. I completely agree with you. I got, you know, it's, you know, there's opportunity to, I'm not even sure how these are for these policy people who know so much more about the world than I do, but I completely appreciate your perspective on this.
I mean, we are the dairy state, but there's a lot of data that shows we are at a tipping point. You're right, the farms have gotten bigger, but a lot of them are struggling right now. And so when seeing this data, are these digesters targeting more the commercial farms that are too big, or are you looking at those partnerships with Wisconsin's genuine small farmers?
These are specific to larger farms. We need a bare minimum of about 2,500 head to make any of these facilities work. On average, I would say a digester is somewhere in the realm of 15 to 25 million for that size of a farm to build or to process. So it's not cheap. And they're expensive to run, and we're dealing with corrosive materials, with the byproducts of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia. They will eat a metal door for lunch. So it's, some of these unexpected outcomes.
At the consulting level, it comes to know about anything about the co-op and how we can help out smaller farmers, or is it still just a business model?
It's still just a business model. I have seen in the industry the creation of smaller digesters. There's a brand name called Chomp. And it'll support a smaller number of cows and it will generate electricity. So that becomes an issue to connecting to a grid. And so there's still some infrastructure challenges there. And it's 3 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity that we put onto the grid. There's conversation, some people say, well, what about battery storage? You can store it and then it becomes a little tiny power plant. So there's a lot of stuff that plays into these conversations.
All the way up, Brian. If you want to shout before I get over there, that's fine.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for making manure interesting. You're brave to stand up there and take that on. I have 2 questions. In forestry, there's well, used to be, and I hope continues, a thriving market for carbon offset credits. So you have companies that buy huge amounts of forest land and then sell those credits to big companies. Is there a way to make that work in this instance by maybe using the methane for electricity? And then my second question is, you mentioned you need to have a huge farm to get all the manure within a quarter mile or whatever. What kind of population or dairy farm density do you need to make it efficient? I assume the dairy farms are still spread out.
Yeah. So I will answer your last question first. And anytime you put wheels under water, which is basically what manure is, it's going to reduce the value of the gas on the back end, right? The carbon intensity score is going to be closer to 0 than it was if you could just pump it in, or so proximity does weigh into this. There's also the addition of, we actually paid the town of Vienna an annual fee for usage of the roads, the trucks that are trucked into us. So that, so we helped offset any of the additional wear and tear roads. These are all just sort of this unexpected costs that show up. So proximity is a really big thing. And I will say at this point, most of the big farms or the smaller farms that are closer together that would equal that number of cows, those have not been developed, or the farms are definitely anti. We don't want to do it, right? What I've noticed is that farmers want to farm and they don't want to run a digester, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So to your first question on offset credits, there are multiple offset credits and none of them are particularly consistent, and so people are hesitant to participate in them until there is some consolidation of that methodology for what the value is. I believe if that can be figured out, though, that your multinational companies are going to be the ones that are looking to do it, Danone, Nestle, because they still have requirements for meeting their environmental goals over in Europe.
Thanks a lot for that. I'm gonna try to give a little perspective. I'm an agriculturalist. And I've consulted, I grew up on a farm, 70s and 80s, small Wisconsin dairy farm. I can't believe what I've seen as far as the changes in our industry. I'm kind of Wisconsin. Okay, I can try, I'm a Wisconsin guy. And it's really complex, what we're all talking about. Manure used to be the thing you made fun of growing up on a farm, right? What brother got to go out and pitch the ship, right? And that wasn't much a fun job. Now manure's turned into a valuable commodity. So I want to give a little perspective. I'll try not to take too long here. I've been doing consulting for a long time. I've been down to different parts of the country and around the world. And let me give you an example of Kansas and Texas. Those farms are bigger than I ever thought I would ever see. Okay, 20,000 cows on a site. Now, when we look at the landscape around Wisconsin, you can't hardly imagine that. But you look at the landscape of Kansas and Texas, there's really not a lot of people in these areas, and you can really produce a lot of food. That's where the feedlots are. That's where they're milking cows. So the one time I was out to a big dairy, like 20,000 cows, Shell Oil was there, putting up a methane scrubber, cleaner, making product. So he put a deal together with taking the methane from their cattle in a methane digester, cleaning the methane, scrubbing the methane, and it goes in the pipeline to run the buses in Houston. Too far away. Are we too far back here?
Just shout. Just speak loudly.
Reboot?
And then when you look at that, you think that's pretty cool, right? Produce, every farm can produce such a great, I deal with a lot of situations where a lot of the people who aren't from farms, now, if I wasn't from a farm, I wouldn't understand it. But a lot of people say, well, why do we need even animals, methane and stuff like that? But these big dairy farms produce food, they produce fiber, they upcycle all these byproducts of the food industry that us humans can't consume. Produces organic fertilizer. There's only a certain amount of fossil fuel based fertilizers that, that's not a sustainable way to go. So we can, like these nutrient management plans, and they can produce renewable natural gas. So when I see that down there, I don't like the size of those farms because, I'm used to these kind of farms and they're really just only so many farmers. But I tell you, the good thing about down in Kansas and Texas, they're producing the food and doing this where there's not a lot of people. Now we get up here in Wisconsin, how can we make these methane digesters, work in that area and make things more efficient? A lot of people talk about why did these farms have to get so big? Well, I milked cows in the 70s in 60 to 70 cow dairies, and it is very labor intensive. And my generation and the generation below me now would never want to milk 60 or 70 cows. With increased costs, it's a really poor way of life that my parents did and my grandparents did. So we modernized. But we keep getting bigger and bigger. And so we got to find a way to find that balance. What goes on around Dane County, I guess my question here would be, if you look at, you say the population is going to double, but the cow number is going to stay the same. I would guess the cow numbers are going to drop a lot. I think they're going to move somewhere else because the people are going to kind of take over.
Yeah.
And like James and I have talked about, what do we want Dane County to look like down the road? Do we want to have these farms there? These farms, I consult with a lot of these farms north of Madison, and they're really well managed farms. There's always a few here and there that, maybe don't quite follow the rules like they should, but
there's some really well-managed farms compared to what they used to be. We used to spread manure in the wintertime. We have to, who got the short straw hauling manure on Sunday morning before church in the cold winter out on the snow, we kept spreading it in the same place. And then it run off, and I grew up down by the Mississippi River, and the rest of the story. So it's complex. I guess I'm not sure what the equal message is. I just like to talk about the importance of dairy farming in Wisconsin, trying to find that balance. What happens in Wisconsin is a lot different than what happens down in other parts of the world. South Dakota's got a lot of dairy business now because they're not people, a lot of land. To me, that's where a lot of that stuff's got to go. I'd love to keep all the dairy farms here in Wisconsin as is, but we got to make sure we protect the watershed too. So I've talked too long, so I'll probably let it go there. But just some comments I make.
No, thank you so much for that, because it really added texture to, like, I can't give you an agricultural history, right? I can just talk about the last 10 years of a digester. So it definitely helps fill in the background on the picture. So thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
This might be the last question, but most of the economics for maintaining these and running these digesters is coming from those carbon credits. Is that correct? We kind of mentioned how there's such a large economic benefit to Clean Lakes around our area. Is there any example of a mechanism where somehow you can link the economic value of clean water to management practices such as digesters, since those are kind of related? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I don't think it's been done. I think it would be an excellent conversation. Sort of to take a look at in person. And just one more thing. I love that I appreciate the correction that cows are going to have to move out of the area, which is, because of the population growth here. Yeah, so thank you.
So just, everybody hear me? Wow, that's loud. As loud as it is. So I'm James, I work for Clean Lakes Lions. One of the things that you might not know is that we have a new community plan called Renew the Blue to reduce the amount of phosphorus in our lakes and also start to get closer to E. coli. Under that, the Clean Lakes Lions is the backbone for a new implementation council called Renew the Blue. We have 20 different organizations that have signed on. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at is the number of acres in our county that are undeveloped. They can be undeveloped for many different reasons. It could be parks, it can be land future for housing development, it can be farming. And so we want to get a really good idea of how much of that land is owned by agriculture versus how much of that land is owned by a developer who they're renting to agriculture. So we can sort of understand where we're at in land management. And a lot of our communities are doing strategic planning of where they want to grow as a town, as a city. We know the population is going to grow. So we're going to have to make some choices in the future, but you have to start with data. And that's why we're really excited with our partnership with the county, the DNR, the municipalities, other nonprofits, to come up with the metrics of where we're at. So we can, once you have a metric, then you can find a solution and know how big the opportunity is. So look forward to that. The council will be meeting for the first time beginning in February.
Awesome. Thanks, James. We love good data. Jessica, thank you for your time. That might be one of the most engaging Q&As that I've been a part of. A lot of really thoughtful questions, a lot of really heartfelt questions too. This is something that I think people showed up today. I think we were talking about, we were going to talk about a little more than that, which I appreciate. Thank you. I did see a few hands that we did not get to, and I apologize for that, but we are at 5:01. If we didn't get your questions today, please feel free to email Clean Lakes Alliance. It's info@cleanlakesalliance.org. They'll connect you with Jessica or whoever can get that answer to you. This video will also be up on YouTube and Facebook tomorrow morning, so if you share it, that's what I always do, is share it with my parents. And if somebody else has a question, you share it with your neighbors or share it with your family members. Again, email Clean Lakes Alliance, we want to share information. As I just mentioned, data is important, so if we're able to get you that data either from Clean Lakes or from Jessica, we definitely want to facilitate that. We're going to be back here in October. The October 101 will be Tuesday, October 17th or 14th. Sorry, I know numbers. We're going to be reviewing agricultural practices that improve our soil health and reduce runoff with Dane County Conservationist Amy Pagant. You do not want to miss this one. Also remember to sign up for our upcoming Community Volunteer Day in September or in October. We got 2 options. Any more information about those events you can always find on the website, Clean Lake Alliance. .org. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Really?
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. That was great.